Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Girlfriend Hour. I'm your host, your ghost host, Morgan Fezza.
And I'm your hosty, ghosty, that still likes toasty, Taylor Jones.
Taylor is back in action after a wonderful, really cool vacation. And
I'm
we could
so
chat about
tired.
that. Yeah,
I'm
I know.
completely tired. I literally can't even focus today. I don't know how I'm here right now.
Jet lag life, hashtag.
Oh,
So today, as you guys can notice, I am wearing a red handprint on my face. This is something we wanted to do before the episode because we wanted to take a moment to speak from the heart. I think it's safe to say that we are all grieving alongside a community that has lost someone far too young, far too soon. We are dedicating this episode in honor and remembrance of Emily Pike, who was a 13-year-old Indigenous girl who lost her life. And I shouldn't say lost because it was taken in a senseless act of violence. Emily was a daughter, a friend, a bright soul with dreams, and so much life ahead of her. Her loss is not just a tragedy, but it's a call to remember her name, to speak her truth, and demand better for all Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. Emily is not a statistic. She was loved, she was mattered, and she deserved a full, safe, and joyful life. Today, we remember her not only for how she passed away, but for who she was. And we also stand with her family, her friends, and her entire community in this unimaginable time of pain. As we hold space for Emily today, we also want to remind our listener that the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls is ongoing. These are not isolated tragedies, but they are part of a long and devastating pattern that demands awareness, accountability, and action. So today we are using our platform to call on our communities, our leaders, and each other to do more, to be better, and to never turn away. Justice is not only a court decision, but it is a remembrance, an action, and a change. Emily deserves justice. Her family deserves healing, and every Indigenous child deserves to grow up in a world where they are safe, where they are seen, and where they are valued. We will be sharing resources in the show notes for those who want to support Indigenous communities and amplify the voices of survivors and help families in search of justice. Emily, this episode is for you. May your spirit be held in love, and may your memory spark change, and may you never be forgotten. This is how you can help if you're looking to help out and raise awareness. We ask that you donate to these organizations or directly to families through verified GoFundMes. Amplify voices on social media using hashtags like MMIW, MMIWG2S, and Justice for Emily Pike. Volunteer at events, vigils, or search efforts, always in partnership with and respecting Indigenous-led leadership. Call for policy change by contacting government officials and demanding implementation of MMIW recommendations and actions. And the most important thing that we always promote on the podcast is educating others through schools, workplaces, or public forums. We just want to thank you all today that are listening and are helping us to support. I'm sorry. I just think it's emotional because as a mother, as a wife, as a female, we all need to do our part and we just need to do better. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it at. So thank you for taking a moment to remember her today. And let's welcome our wonderful guests today. So today we are joined by Thomas and Charles, who I had the utmost pleasure of meeting in Massachusetts at Mass Paracon. Welcome, guys. And thank you so much for joining us on our episode today.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for the very important intro that preceded us.
Yeah, that was an important one. As you know, Charles and I are the Shaman and the Showman. Shaman I take very seriously. Just blessings. Anybody that watches, just give offerings to the spirit world, the spirit guides, to carry Emily's spirit to where she could rest easy now, and give strength to those around her that loved her, and just to the community. It's very important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I think that's a very interesting, unintentional segue that I would love to kind of talk a little bit about is, both of your backgrounds, starting with you, Thomas, talking about how did you become a shaman? Where did this journey in the paranormal start for you?
Well, you just don't become one. It's chosen. It's put in your life. It's your whole life. It's knocking on the door. It wasn't until recently that I really decided to open the door. I've always been a healer type. I've always been an empath. I've always picked up on things. And just as you level up, I think I came to the point I leveled up enough to accept what my spirit guides always knew that I could be, and use that work to help the living and the dead. And what Charles and I do on events or just a paranormal investigation, other projects that I do, but most importantly, what Charles and I do.
Absolutely.
But he's been doing it a long time. We're talking, he's being modest. This is 40 years of experience in paranormal investigation, in true crimes, and criminology. He's got an amazing resume. And when we became a partnership, I'm a novice. I'm the relatively newbie at this. I entered the paranormal universe less than 10 years now. So I've always been a promoter. I've always been a go-getter. I've always been someone who's, been able to get the word out for events and do things like that. So the showman and the shaman, or the shaman and the showman, is a perfect match for the yin and yang, as we said earlier, of the two of us, where one of us is the real deal and the other one is not the real deal. The other one is the one who can yap forever and make sure people have fun at events. And it's been an amazing, teamwork. It's been an amazing partnership.
Absolutely. And chemistry is everything. I think you both can maybe speak to this, but I think it takes something special to kind of form a partnership like that. And it really takes that chemistry to make it work and shine through all those years of kind of what you've, I guess the word I'm looking for is built upon, like you said, getting to that level where you can kind of accept these gifts and your talents and kind of put them together. And sometimes that doesn't always work well. So, how did you guys kind of figure out that your chemistry meshed to make the shaman and the showman, and that you're like, hey, this is gonna be successful?
We're both.
I got that one.
We're both.
I think it was from day one when we first met. But he had a partner before, and I had met Charles once before. It was kind of a forgotten one, but when we really met and just had a conversation, I remember him looking at me and says, "I don't like you," and I says, "I don't like you either." And we laughed at each other, and we knew right away our sarcasm and all that, and that camaraderie was there. And it was a couple days later that he needed a new partner, and we were just kind of trying it out. He was a few people to help him out with some events, and we just stuck. We were there for each other. We have each other's back. We work hard together. If there's something that I'm good at, I'll do that. There's something he's good at, he does. That way we're not leaving stuff in the crack.
Unless either of you are available, in which case he's out.
You guys are a hoot. I cannot.
Yeah.
But that's amazing though.
You guys, we try to bring a little levity and a little humor and a little more entertainment perhaps into what we do, because it's a serious topic and there's so much seriousness, but there's so much darkness, and we're the opposite. We want light, we want happiness, we want to if we can cross someone over, that's important to us. But it's also equally important to make sure that the people who are coming on events, whether it's a paracon, whether it's a convention, whether it's a paranormal investigation, that they leave not only with the knowledge that they've gained, more knowledge, that they've had an incredible experience, but they've had fun. That's so important and so lacking in all these things. Right, Taylor?
I agree. No, because I'm in agreement. I agree. Sometimes I feel like the world's too serious, especially in situations like that. You definitely have to bring some light to it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we do these events, when you're having a good time and you all have the same intention for good, and I think that brings more out at a location with the spirits. When you're having fun and you're laughing, and spirits are just like they were in life. They don't have the meat suit anymore, and they just want to come and have fun with you and communicate. Yeah. When you're being serious and yelling things and all that, I don't think it's going to happen. And that's why we have so much fun, because everybody that comes on our events, we get people repeats, we get some people that, love coming with us, we get new people and all that, but it's always a good time. The intention's there. It's a teaching experience for myself and Charles, but it's also, Charles is always one, he's up there having a good time, and they're getting in spirit and trying to pull things out so people do have that great experience and say they can leave and say, wow, I had my first paranormal experience, or wow, I'm looking at the paranormal in a different way I never did before.
Absolutely. And I love that you touched upon that, because one thing that we often, I think, reminisce about, and it speaks to that, is our very first investigation that me and Taylor went on. I really truly believe that night we just had a really great group. Like, I mean, I would say so, right, Taylor? Like, I feel like our first investigation, we haven't been able to recreate that yet, but it was just, we were all strangers. We didn't know anybody there except for the three gentlemen running it. And when we got together with all these strangers, there was some sensitives in the mix. There was people who were just empathic, but we all were eager, and just the teamwork was amazing. And we all were laughing and just kind of feeding off of one another. And the energy that came to the table was just insane. And there was a lot of, I don't know the word, but like, synchronicity maybe is a good word. Like, I feel like, it was like, I would be one example is we were working in a print shop where there was a male spirit, but it was one of those things where I feel like he was very standoffish, very shy, and trust issues. There was a lot of trust issues, and I felt like we kind of were like, hey, I kept getting the signal of like, let's connect via music. And simultaneously, me and another sensitive in the room, we were like, we pick the same exact song out of all the hymns and gospel songs in the entire universe. How we both landed on the same song, and we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, that is so weird that we both started to sing the same song. So, little things like that. So I think that does speak to when you're in the right vibration and you're with the right chemistry, it really does bring out the best.
So true. You said it so well. And we find that Thomas mentioned that we have a lot of people who come on our paranormal investigations, who come every single one. We put it out there. They come with us because they know that it's going to be a positive and it's going to be a great experience. But the first timers who come too, also, it's like, oh my gosh, this was great. And it's not just we visit the place and we go to dinner first. So that's like, a social hour. We kick it off where everyone schmoozes. We teach them how to use the equipment. Thomas brings all the gear, and we do an orientation. I try to sell them my book, and then we make our way to the location. So we'll have pizza, we'll have soda, we'll get everyone filled, and in the right spirits. And Thomas will, tell them, a lot of this is intention. We're going with a positive, with the right motives. We're not going to yell at spirits. We're not going to be antagonistic. We're not going to be negative. And the results just speak for themselves. I'm not an empath. I'm not a medium. I'm not psychic. I don't have that. My kind of, if it's a gift, is I take a lot of great photos that show results.
Yeah.
And that's just something that sprung up on me. And, I don't think there's an event we've gone to, right, Tom's, where there hasn't been like an amazing wow factor in a photo that's come up. Whereas he experiences it, where he's there. And he's going to assess what's the method you use where you're silent, where you're out of touch with that?
Oh, we're doing one of our recent ones. I was doing the Estes method.
Estes,
yes. Our favorite.
I was channeling an angry spirit, and Charles just kept snapping pictures of me. Yeah. And then only one photo, it was like the moment that he channeled into me, my face morphed.
Distorted.
My beard was gone and my hair was longer.
Right in the photo.
It's crazy because I had never experienced the facial distortions before, ever. Like, every time we've done Estes, it's more of been like a visual thing, at least just my experience. And what I think is really cool is you are the second person in, like, you're a second podcast ever in the last couple of days where we had somebody else that just recently had done an investigation, and they were saying that they watched somebody's face change. And I'm like, that is so crazy. And to be able to capture that, like, what was that moment like for you? I mean, what did you say when you saw that?
I didn't see it. It was only afterwards, because we took like 20, 30 different pictures of him, and I didn't see it at the time. And it's
relatively dark. It was relatively dark in the room. There was very minuscule light coming in from the hallway, but
it was an old hall, a Masonic temple. And earlier, everyone was saying this area was where they felt the strongest feelings. And I just I took pictures even prior to that. And there's one picture of a closet area. It was a walk-in closet. And in front of the closet, in just one of the pictures, is this shadow figure for no reason. And it's well defined with a head, with shoulders and all that. And I can attest that when I took the picture, there was nobody who could have been in the room who would have been the shadow of, and there's nobody who could have planted themselves in any which way. So that was in the same time frame. Before we did the Estes method, I had got without knowing the shadow figure in there in the same area, and then his face distortion, his face morphed, and the two gals. Thomas, you want to tell them about the two gals who were on that event with us?
Yeah, so we have two of our really good friends that come on a lot of our events. They're pretty well into the paranormal themselves, and they do pendulum. Where on the pendulum, it'll spell out words, or it'll go to, different directions or anything like that. Now, they were upstairs. I was downstairs at the time. And, they're trying to communicate with this woman. This woman wanted to be with her children. And so they know me, but they didn't put two and two together right off the bat, because the pendulum kept spelling my name, kept spelling Tom. And Charles came down to get me, and I went back up there. And I don't know, I'm trying to introduce ourselves as we talk. I'm known in the paranormal as, if a spirit needs that counseling to move on, I'm the guy. So, that's what I do. I've been doing it for 40 years, and trying to communicate with the other side, help them heal if they have any trauma, what's holding them back, why are they still here? But this woman wanted to find her children. And so I sat with the ladies and people that have known me for a while. I don't just make spirits leave or anything like that. That's not my thing. My spirit guides tell the other spirit, if you want to leave and you need help, just call his name. So it's spelled out on the pendulum. It'll come through an ITC device. Whatever it is, it'll happen. I know I got to go to work and help somebody. So the woman was coming through on the ITC device. She wanted to find her children. And I says, I want you to picture the best moment you ever had with your children. And there was silence. And she says, I see them. And then the energy totally changed. That's what it takes sometimes. A lot of people say, go to the light or something. But you have to remember, what is the light? The light is that moment when that idea goes off and it gives you that knowing. I've had spirits where their favorite thing in life was Daisy. They said, well, picture daisies. Oh, I see the field. Oh, I see it. It's getting them to that point of the negative or the trauma, taking them away from it and letting them see that this is the path. This is the path for you individually. So that's why I'm calling the light is different for everybody.
It's just essentially kind of reaching ascension. Like, it's just reaching that point of being able to bypass that barrier into. That's very, very cool.
But what he didn't tell you is that a Masonic hall is very male dominated. And I think we had a spirit there that wasn't so happy that there were two, very strong female presences doing the pendulum thing, because one of them got severely scratched. And that was one of those, oh my gosh, scenarios. So that night was just, it was infested with both. I shouldn't use the word infested if it's positive, but we had the best of both worlds in many ways. We had, able to help the mom, who was able to reunite somehow with the children, what she needed to cross over. And then there was what I think was a more level in spirit, who gave those girls a little hard time by scratching them, the ladies, and also kind of did a quick attack on Tom when he was under that method. I really think that was the same spirit who was not happy we were there.
Yeah, he wanted to let me know by scratching me, but then I let him know afterwards that, purpose. When I'm in the Estes method, not only am I hearing what's coming through, I'm in meditation where I'm picking up on, the information.
Yeah.
And yeah, it got to the point where it got a little heavy. We're going back and forth. And, when you start channeling somebody and they're angry, you physically will appear to be angry. My breathing changed. Like when you start breathing and like you're about to punch somebody. So that's when Charles had to pull me out, because I was picking up and channeling his anger that everybody was a female, or I don't know how old this spirit was. It really didn't come through, but it could have been from, the older days when, the tradition was much different than it is now.
Yeah. Right. And do you mind me asking? So one thing I'm just curious about, and I love to get different sensitives kind of takes on this, but like one thing that I've noticed that happens to me when I'm under Estes method. So you kind of mentioned it's like a state of meditation. So like once I feel like, I don't know, it's weird because it's like when I'm in that setting and I cross into that point where I can feel myself kind of shift, like I'm no longer just listening to what's coming over the spirit box, but I kind of enter that level of like, I'm now getting my visuals and my like symbols and words and, just the kind of download is what I call it. So like when I enter my download state, do you ever find that it's hard sometimes when you have the words kind of coming through, but you're really not even listening to it at that point? It's just more of like a download. How do you combat that if you do experience it?
Well, I'm just going to say what comes to me, whatever words that I'm receiving, or if I receive a picture, I'm just going to say what the picture is. If something shows me a glass of beer, I'm just going to say, oh, beer. I'm just going to say, oh, beer. It may not make sense, but sometimes with these Estes methods, you could actually be brought in to see something going on, like a whole scene going on, trying to get the message across. I did an investigation at a restaurant where we were invited back, and we were picturing, as we're in the Estes method, of a speakeasy at the time. The music was playing. We could hear the music coming through. That's not on any radio station. It was speakeasy, that piano ragtime music, glasses clinking and all that. You could hear the glasses clinking coming through. Sometimes you're hearing not just voices, but sounds from a certain era to give you the message that you're receiving to give to the people that are, asking. So
and that's kind of what I wanted to ask, is because sometimes I'm like, I know I'm supposed to be like evidence wise, it's almost like a tear, because I'm like, I know I'm supposed to be listening to what's coming over the spirit box, but I feel more led to the download. And so it's like sometimes like I'm like, am I a good candidate for Estes method if I'm more so using the download versus, or is it one of those things where it's like it really just kind of like, if you are sensitive, it just puts you in a state of that meditation enough that like you can get the download and it doesn't really matter?
I think the whole thing with the Estes method, it's not a scientific approach. There's no way you could repeat the same thing over and over again. So I think scientifically you can't prove it. But the thing is it's more of a metaphysical type of thing where, just like anybody, you go for a reading from a psychic. It's the same thing. But when you're in that group, the thing that they try and put the science side of it is interpretation. So if I have the headphones on and I'm blindfolded and I can only hear what's coming through, and you ask questions and I start answering them, knowing that I can't hear you, whatever, that is a spiritual thing. A spiritual conversation is going back and forth. So I think the people that are best at doing the Estes method are the ones that could protect themselves, but the ones that are open and do receive that message. So you're getting it from possibly the white noise and the radio signals from the box, but also being in that meditative state, you are getting it through that third eye or whatever way you pick up on things.
Have you
getting more information?
Have you had any like results using that method, Morgan? Or
yeah, absolutely. And really most of our like profound evidence, Taylor had an experience in Gettysburg, and that was, I think, your first like real Estes method experience, right, Taylor? Yeah, it was a little harrowing. And then mine came at in Columbia, PA. We were at Samuel Miller Mansion, and the basement is where I inadvertently found myself quite often, because there was a we're still trying to figure out, there's so many layers there. If you've never been there, I would highly recommend it, because I suggest it to everybody, because it is one of those unique locations where there is just like, it's like an onion. There's just never ending layers. You peel back one layer, you think you have it, and it just goes deeper and deeper. And I've told Taylor, I still have a spiritual tie to a spirit there. And I don't know her name. She has not given me her name, but she showed me distinctly, she has a very distinct scar feature on her face. And it goes from about here to here. It's very deep, and it's like healed over almost. And like, I think she was a part of the Underground Railroad. And she has been a very maternal, just loving, protective force every time that I've been there. And she still gives me downloads. I still have dreams about it, because there's something deeper in that basement. This is what I was getting at before I got sidetracked. But she has protected me from the more malevolent spirit that I think is down there. And I can't decipher what it is. My first walkthrough of the mansion, I was like, this is I said a shapeshifter. That was my first instinct, because the way that it presents itself is not its true form. And I don't like things that don't show me who they are off the bat, because you typically, and maybe you can speak to this, Thomas, anytime something right off the bat is like, I know that it's deceiving, that usually is kind of like a red flag. And you're like, not that we have to jump to the D word, or that we have to go, but it typically can be a little bit more malevolent, or there's layers to that spirit. And there's a reason for the guardship. Like, I'm not really sure, but it did not give me good feelings. And when I went under Estes, he was very on me, like very just, it was, you have to have a male down there with you, because you need like a reinforcing voice to say, like, you need to back up, like, you need to mind your space, because he's very agitated, very aggressive, very in your face. So that was probably the most profound experience. I know, a long-winded answer, but there's just so much history and stuff that goes on there that still hasn't yet been discovered, that I think it's a lot older than they probably realize, but it was the most in your face thing that I've ever had.
Yeah. So first off, the one you're talking about, the one that protects you, has an M name like yourself.
Okay.
I'm still trying to have it come through, and I can't really pick up on it right now. But a lot of times, saying Underground Railroad or anything of traumatic history, the person that caused the trauma in spirit tends to remain also. Okay. So that's the aggressiveness that you might get, especially in that nature. But also, when people pass that still have trauma, they pass pure, and the trauma could stay. I've had it happen on an SLS camera where we're talking, and the person that we're trying to get to leave, that went through the trauma, all of a sudden they're ready to leave, they want to go, and then all of a sudden it changes and another figure pops up. Like it's a shadow, it's holding them there. You have to cut that cord, and that trauma stays there. And there's two of you now. Whether you separate pure, that trauma is still there, but now it's your twin. It's your shadow. It's like the old Peter Pan. The shadow was the bad thing.
I never thought of it like that.
So, and that's what it is. You watch a lot of movies, and there's a lot of little things, especially the old cartoon movies and all that have a lot to do with the paranormal and just how people think. And you really put it together, and that's the shadow is considered, you're the light shining, and the shadow is the darkness of yourself. so shining on the ground. So, and
It
that's
just
where
blew my
our
mind.
traumas, and that's what keeps us, you know, in
Wow.
the past. And you could have been talking to the trauma of that girl. That's the malevolent side, but you still have that relationship with the good side. You, like we said, the yin and the yang. You can't have the good, you can't have the bad, you can't have the light, you can't have the dark, you can't have a higher power, God, whatever you believe, or the devil, Satan, whatever. You can't have one or the other. There's both in the spirit world too that we battle. So.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I never thought about it like that. And I love the Peter Pan reference because I'm such an imagery person, and I think that perfectly puts it into perspective, you know, that I just never thought about the fact that you could separate into two. And I guess I've never picked that up or felt that. It's always been, I guess, singular. But this is why I haven't really defined my gifts yet, because I don't know. We still don't know what's going on or what my deal is. I just know that it's been lifelong. So
you get there. Everybody's on their own journey, but you know, having Charles and I on your show, and we give you some information, but that information is for you to digest for your own journey. So
yeah,
absolutely. You take what you take. Yeah,
absolutely.
Everybody's on an individual journey, but we all do it together. But we listen to each other and the things that make sense to us to make those decisions to go forward.
I love that. I love that. And I want to hear, so like, enough about us, because I feel like I've talked a little bit too much about like our stuff, but I want to hear more about, you know, your investigations and some of the profound evidence that you guys have found and what your investigations have taught you. Like, what are some things that you didn't know prior that you kind of learned along, you know, your investigative journey and your journey period?
Wow, that's a great question. We have one coming up April 4th and 5th, is it? We're returning to the trolley museum where there's those old trolleys that used to run, and a few of them they've conditioned so they can run. So what part of our event is actually going on a trolley, but also examining all the tracks and the whole museum. It's really pretty special. And that's the next one that's coming up. It's one of the few times we're repeating and going to a place we've went before, because we had so much great results there. If there's anyone watching who's in New England or on the East Coast and wants to join us, we have space on that one. What's really great about that is all we knew going in was that there was a child who was in a trolley accident, and they would hear the child crying at night. And that some of the trolley, one came from 9/11, one came from New Orleans. You know, it's a museum, so there's cars from probably all over the world. Yeah. But we did this once before. It was about a year ago, last April, right? And you had what was one of the most amazing. I want you to relate, because I know what happened there, and I know how people go when you tell the story of Billy, right? Yeah. And this was on at the Trolley Museum investigation last year. We're returning there in a few weeks. What was it again? He was
well, Billy. We do 2 nights. We like to do 2 nights because you compare and contrast sometimes, that some energy you get on one night and then it builds to the second night, or vice versa. You know, you never know what the intention and the energy of all the people that come, and you get different results, and it's always different. You know, anybody that comes in, it's always going to be different in what you put into it. But the first night we were there, we're on a trolley from New Orleans that they said was from like the 8th, you know, whatever district, I don't know, they call them down there. But the first night, me personally sitting there, we let people use the instrumentation and they're holding it and things like that. But the first night, I was picking up through the ITC device of a guy named Billy, and he kept saying he wanted to go to college, just over and over again. And I just found that kind of profound, but I wasn't putting it together at the moment. And then I think, you know, the second night we went, we brought a new group, you know, a different energy. And you guys are familiar with, you know, the EMF detectors and things like that. So we had one of the people, one of our patrons was holding the Mel meter, you know, and she was at the front of this trolley along with our guide, who's going to be there again, of course. And he's standing there. I'm on the other end of the track, and people are kind of milling around. And then the girl says, "This thing is going to 120, 0.1, right? You guys know 0.1, 0.2, whatever. It was
That's
90,
crazy.
90 point, 120. The guy that was giving us the guide nearly fell to the ground because of the energy he was feeling. So immediately, Charles and I always want to keep everybody safe. And I felt a little different. I was like, something's going on here. So I had everybody sit down, had the device out, and Billy came through again. Wanted to go to college, but this time I downloaded right in the middle of it. When I, in spirit, I start sweating profusely, and he really came through. All I could see is like a movie going off, World War II, whatever, over and over and over again. And it finally dawned on me, Billy didn't go to college because he went off to war and died.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he couldn't go to college. So as we're sitting there, I'm trying to help Billy because it was so profound that he wanted to come through and tell his story. And I said, heard your story, Billy. He says, you going off to war and dying for our country is your college. There was silence. As soon as I said that, the instrumentation went to zero, and you could feel a rush of energy just leave the trolley. And people were sitting on the trolley like silent for like 10 minutes and didn't know what to do. They couldn't put together what they just witnessed. I do this all the time, but I think that one was a little different for me because of how strong he came through, how desperate he was to tell his story. And for us to be there at that moment to help is incredible. And that's when we do these events, that's possibly you're there to witness that and be part of something very, positive. And that's a great thing. That's one of the good stories, and we always seem to get something, whether it be something like Billy or something else.
With Billy, when that was done, the meters like instantly all together flattened out, all zeroed out. And the people who were feeling the oppression, if there was an audible sound, there would have been a whoosh in that trial. It would have really, you would have heard that.
Wow.
Because that's how strong the change was from the pressure of him and Tom. That was a miracle. And I think he did such a great deed that night, and Billy moved on. Yeah.
Do you think that was the most profound spiritual experience you've had along this journey yet? Or
Charles,
have there
yes.
been?
With Charles, yes. But after 40 years,
yeah.
After 40 years, Charles and I have talked about some of the stuff that I've experienced. When I'm teaching Charles about the paranormal, I know he says he's not as experienced, but one of the most important things when him and I met was, I think, he never really wanted to go on he just wanted to be the showman and do all this stuff, and then let somebody like myself or his old partner just do the investigation.
I would leave, guys. I would do the introduction, the social hour. We'd have pizza. I'd get them all oriented, and I'd say, "Okay, we'll see you later." And I was, I don't say afraid, but I was reluctant to go on to these places that, were some of them are very, highly possessed. But I have such a confidence in Tom's and the way he impresses people upon the whole concept of intent and positivity, that there isn't one that I've missed since. And we've gone to some incredible places. Now, before him, I went to a place called Captain Grant's Inn in Preston, Connecticut. And if the name sounds familiar to you, it's because it was in the Netflix show 28 Days Later. Right.
Okay.
28
Days Haunted.
Haunted. Right.
Yeah.
And Sean Austin joined us because he was one of the investigators on the show. And my personal, what happened to me there was that we were going to, there's two cemeteries. There's one on the grounds, and then there's the ancient town cemetery across the street. And we were taking people, obviously, to both as part of the investigation. And there was, in the old one across the street, there was this hidden crypt where you have to duck your head and go under, and apparently this is where they would store the bodies before they would bury them. And it was, I don't know if it's still used as that, but there were some beer cans and some sleeping bags. So maybe squatters, were staying in there, whatever. So we kept taking the groups there, 2 on Friday, 4 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. Well, someone came late on Sunday, and I hadn't gone there. This was before I was with Thomas and before I had, the confidence to go to things. But a few people came late, and Sean Austin had taken them, out a dozen times already. And they said, well, can you take us to this little crypt that everyone's talking about? This. I go, all right. So sure. So we go to the same exact place. And then 45 minutes later, another couple came, and they were from Maine, and they wanted to go as well. I said, all right, I'll go. Now I know how to get there, and I know how to get you inside, and it's not a problem. We go to this place, and there's a little like dirt path on the way to it. Within the 45 minutes between the 2 times, that path was now filled with tree branches, with leaves, with wood. It was like blocked that we couldn't get in there. Now, no one lived there, so this wasn't somebody's home and they were trying to stop people from going. I felt nothing because I'm not that. I wouldn't have had a feeling. Maybe if Thomas was there and then he would have gone there, he would have felt something. But for some reason, the people could get close but couldn't get inside. They couldn't get through all the debris that was all of a sudden there within a 45-minute period. No rationale, no explanation. And they had to look at just pictures of all the ones that the people took before of this place.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So you guys have gotten some really awesome just evidence from all of these investigations that you've done. And I mean, I think one of my bigger questions too is, how do you guys feel like your spiritual beliefs could possibly enhance your energy as well on an investigation? Because I feel like, like some people, I guess the way that I would word it is, some people from an indigenous background, they may have more spiritual connections to elemental locations, or, certain people who are heavier in a Catholic or Christian faith, or, so how do your own personal beliefs, do you think, kind of help you level up in certain location areas?
See, Thomas, this is why I didn't want to give up on this podcast, on this interview.
Those are good questions.
These are great questions.
Awesome.
I'm very rounded.
I don't know how to answer it. I'm a very religious person.
Yeah.
And my faith is very strong. And I don't want to have to make what I believe in one world translate into what I might believe or I don't know, impact the other world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fair.
That without thinking about it before, I think subconsciously, not consciously, subconsciously, I've avoided making that the 2 worlds meet and meshing, and even giving it a lot of thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, doing home cases year after year, I have to be very diverse. And all that. I do have my own beliefs, but I really believe that if I go to a home and they're of, Jewish faith, I have to approach it with their beliefs, because that's the energy that they put in there. That might have been what attracted whatever. So I have to take that in consideration. Also, if I know there's, indigenous that lived on that land, I got to take that into consideration all at the same time. So what's in the house? What is there? As you interview people and you pick up on what their beliefs are, you have to do your investigation based off of their beliefs and how that's going to work for the energy of them to heal them. But then you have to take in consideration what spirits are interacting. Are they indigenous? Are they malevolent? Are they whatever? You have to pick up that. Who lived there before? What was their background? Once you know that. So for me, I was born and raised Catholic, but I'm a shaman. So, but shamanism isn't a religion. A shaman could pick up on all kinds of different things like I'm talking now. To be able to heal anybody of your tribe or of your community, you have to take in all their beliefs all at the same time.
That's very cool.
I think we're very aware that, being in New England, aside from, you know, so many the original wars and the colonies and how much, you know, brutal deaths and all that, Native American land. I mean, it's under us. You know, you can't deny so much of it was taken away, and there's a lot of holiness to the land, and so a lot of the places that we go to. You know, there was a scenario where someone was telling me that building I was in, oh my God, don't you feel how haunted this is? And I didn't. Of course, I don't feel that. And then we did research years later and found out that it was, you know, built on Native American land, and that person picked up on it without, you know, without having any clues, without there being any research done prior to that.
Yeah. And so, Thomas, this is a question for you. In regards to shamanism, is that the correct? Is that the correct term?
Shamanism is like the practice of it, but being a shaman is just totally different. So I know there are two words. You know, shaman is, you know, you could in the indigenous world, they don't. An Indian, as you know it, wouldn't say they're a shaman. They're more of a healer. They're a medicine man. They're something like that. The word shaman, you know, comes from Russia. So Siberia is where the first people of shamanism were. So it's basically indigenous people all over the world. Has Peru or anything like that. It isn't what you think. It isn't like Indian people, you know, of Native American or anything like that. It's just indigenous in general. Maybe in like indigenous Eskimo or anything like that. It's basically the person that helps the community heal, or the medicine man. They're the healers. They're like, but it's not a religion. It's just a chosen. It could go from, you know, generation to generation, or just, you know, a spirit guide comes upon you and says, this is your calling. So that's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just think it's so interesting. We've had, I think we've had only one other shaman on the podcast, and I just love to hear how people kind of pick their paths. Well, I shouldn't say pick. I hate that. Not pick their path, because your paths kind of pick you. But how you decided to lean into it, because we all, I feel like, have had purposes that have kind of, they swing our way, and there's always signs, and the universe is always kind of saying, hey, like, big neon light, I'm here. What are we going to do about this? And some people just, you know, will stray away from it and, you know, walk away from their alignment. But then there's some people that, you know, can be very brave and lean into it and kind of carve that path out. So I love to hear how people decide to lean into these beautiful paths. So I think that that's really cool that you decided to lean into your purpose and really ascend, so to say.
It's tough in the shaman world if you don't. It's, I don't want to compare it to the mafia, or you're not getting out, but once you're in, or once you know you are, that's what it is. Because they bang on the door, they'll bang on the door until you answer and take on your purpose. They call it the shaman sickness. So where it could attack you mentally, it could attack you physically, until you realize that that's your calling. So sometimes it's a negative things. So some people will look at, but there are people they get very ill because they keep trying to put it to the side, or, you know, those types of things. And until you take it and go on your journey where you have to let go of ego, and those types of things, and be close to spirit, that's part of it. But your journey never ends. You're trying to level up every time. And, you know, it's difficult. You know, I go through stuff. Charles knows I have my moments, you know, where I could lose my, you know what, and then there's moments of clarity or things like that. But that's the battles I have. I battle a lot of things. I battle a lot of, you know, evil things and all that with people that come into our lives and that I have to take care of. And sometimes you take it on as an empath and you have to shake it off. And sometimes it's a little harder than most. So it's
not me. I always have clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody, one of us has to have it at all times. So.
The yin and the yang. The yin and the yang. Yep. But I feel like, so you kind of also touched upon another great segue. So, you know, you said that we battle a lot of evil things, right? So I would love to kind of hear both of your takes on some of the heavier experiences that you've had, because one of the things that I love to do on our podcast is obviously educate. So I want people to meet the real people of the paranormal community. And this is not a dig at Hollywood or the shows. I mean, we all watch them, we love them, it's great. But I want people to meet the faces that truly are out there doing the work and are existing with the afterlife. And so I want to know, you know, what does evil mean to you? And when you've seen it, like, what was that experience like? Because I think everybody has different thresholds of what they consider evil or what they considered malicious. And what might be malicious to one person, they're kind of like, I think that's just a grumpy spirit. What may be demonic to some people, it's like, no, I don't think that was demonic. You know, so there's different takes and perspectives on what evil looks like. So I would love to hear from both of you, if you've had that experience, what you believe true evil is and what that was like.
I have a theory, and I do a lot of library appearances and talks on the paranormal because I have a book out called True Ghost Stories of Connecticut. So I'm doing libraries, and inevitably, if someone doesn't ask, I'll bring it up. But they'll usually ask, aren't I afraid something's going to go home with me? You know, and I'll make a joke and I go, well, I hope it's you, or something like that, because I always want, you know, that chuckle. And I bring forth this theory, and I think it makes sense, and I think it makes sense to the people I present it to. And I go, okay, so we're in a room of 50 people, right? We're in a room of 50 people. How many people in this room are evil? And I'll say, besides me, but how many people are evil? And you know, everyone chuckle, and it's like, I get your point. I go, well, let's go to a concert, and there's 5,000 people. And how many people are really, who, you know, tortures animals, or you know, whatever, does something really heinous? There's not a lot. Well, maybe out of a million, maybe there's one person who, you know, fits into Thomas's studies of true crime and all that. And I think in the spirit world, it's a similar ratio. I think that if 99.9% of people in this world are good, that's what the spirit world is. And if there's, you know, a percentage that's maybe practical jokers, that's what I'll be when I'm, you know, a spirit. Well, that's
so even if my lights start flickering and my remotes go missing, you know, look, I'm gonna be like, that's Charles.
No, it's me. That's how I. So that evil. I don't think I've encountered it. God willing, I'll never encounter it. I know Thomas has, and there's a lot who have, but I think sometimes it's, you know, this is demonic. We want, this is going to be good for the ratings. And you bring up those shows, which I don't watch them. I don't feel that will give me any more information or make what I do it won't improve in any way. It won't bring it to a higher level. And if anything, it'll just bother me that I don't have a show. So I don't watch those shows. But that's kind of my theory on relativity of the malevolent spirits, which could be, you know, seen as demonic. And I think if there are malevolent spirits, even less of those are demonic. It's such a tiny percentage. But Thomas has been longer than I have, and he's seen everything already. So maybe he has a different read on this.
I have a part two before you answer, Thomas, too, because of your true crime background. So we had a priest on here. He's actually Lord, I feel like I'm gonna butcher this. So Father Vincent, if you are listening to this, do not get on my case about it. I'm doing my best here. But we had Father Vincent Lamper on here, and he is the ordained exorcist of Indiana. I think that's the correct title. Mm-hmm. And I posed to him a question because I love to ask this. When it comes to true crime, you often hear people talk about the lack of like soul behind the eyes, and that there's just a lack of almost existence. And I've always had this thought, and I wouldn't really call it a theory yet because I haven't really studied it enough to kind of form a pattern, I guess, but part of me wonders if there are truly like those people that you see in videos and interviews where there's just nothing behind their eyes and there's nothing left there. Are they vacant of a soul? And is that somebody that is truly possibly a demonic energy just walking and existing amongst us? Because I think part of me is like supernatural versus just human rationalization. Like, we can only kind of call it evil and demonic because it's the only way we can rationalize such heinous things happening. But then part of me, the paranormal part of me that has experienced darker energy, I can't help but think that there are very possible, like there's a possibility of these things walking amongst us, that they just kind of lay low and dormant and things happen. So yeah.
All yours, partner.
Wow, I don't know where to begin on that one. Let me just tell you. Let's go back. I've been doing this again for a long time. My only joke, my Charles type of joke, is I've been doing this since dirt was clean. So you pick up on a lot of stuff. Does that make me better than anybody else? No, we're in the paranormal. Nobody can prove it. It's more of experience. There's no pros in this field. It's having an open mind and taking everything in. But the one thing I did learn, that coming into pure evil and seeing it, I will never talk about it. You know why? Because I don't want to give it power again. Because with evil, the more power you give, the more it eats. So, and the stronger it becomes. So to take its power away is to not talk about it anymore. So on those cases. But I think the most evil thing in the world is us as human beings. You know, and me being from the state of Florida, I was a criminal behaviorist. I was basically a profiler that I worked at a psychiatric prison. I met with people like pure evil. Like you're talking about nothing behind their eyes. You know why there's nothing behind their eyes? Because their soul is broken. A lot of serial killers, I'll never glorify them, but they go through the traumas like somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer, who was neglected his whole life and not taught the right things, and just to be put on his own, and how our mind twists. You know, it's
so nature versus nurture, essentially.
But it could be made too. Like later on tonight, in about a half hour, I'll be talking about Richard Ramirez. You know, he was into the satanic stuff. No, nothing behind his eyes, but he was what they consider a made psychopath, where his experiences growing up made him that way. There's so many different things. Or is it, you know, a lot of people think, okay, could they disassociate so much where something demonic takes over? You know, that's a possibility. Is it psychological? Is it presenting as a disassociation, which can be confused for, you know, somebody being under demonic control? Or is it the other way? We don't know, but that's where the main thing is with years of experience, with being able to pick up on things, is the ability and the gift to discern what it actually is. Is it something of not this world? Is it a demon or a fallen angel, is what we more refer to him as? Or is it something psychological? That's what you have to discern when you do a home case. And, you know, that's mostly what I do. And, you know, Charles and I do the events, but, you know, serious like home cases. I've worked with a lot of people. I don't know, you guys know Father Bob, Father Ken, Joe Frankie, Stacia Wills, people like that. We consult on.
Joe Frankie's with the Warren Legacy Foundation, right?
Yeah. So, and Joe worked with the Warrens for over 40 years, you know, and those are the types of things that we look at, bringing that tradition on and discerning and doing the right thing for the living and the dead. And that's what we do. And Charles, being with Charles and all that, and being able to bring that to our Paracons and bringing those types of people to the Paracon, the people to learn about the paranormal and not what you see on TV, and get to hear some of the people you don't get to hear all the time. That's what makes it exciting to come to one of our events, whether it be our big Paracon or just a small 10 to 12 person, you know, little ghost adventure that we want to do. So, you know.
You mentioned Joe Frankie and you mentioned Paracon. And I think you, Thomas, you've just lined up 30 guests for the Paracon.
Yes. Yep. So a lot of the guests that are going to be at the Paracon, Charles and I always talk about this. The Paracon this year is going to be a combo. I think it's unprecedented. I don't think anybody's ever done it before, where we've combined the paranormal and true crime for the first time. Because a lot of people that are coming, but it goes hand in hand. You think about it, when a crime or a murder happens, what happens afterwards? There's a paranormal issue. Look at Amityville, when DeFeo killed his whole family, and then we have the Amityville horror, or Lizzie Borden supposedly, axed her parents, or we don't know. And there's paranormal, the Basilica Axe murder house. It goes on, but it's the same thing. Even in true crime, when you go through trauma, like some of these serial killers go through trauma to become who they are. But when you have trauma, you could create your own haunting. So it all goes hand in hand, and we're going to be able to discuss that with everybody's different point of views, with all our speakers we're going to have, the science side of it, the metaphysical side of it, the true crime side of it, you name it, it's going to be there. And, even to the point where, we'll have people there that are of the monster world and the horror world, and we're going to have everything. So it's going to be great.
Do you guys have the dates for that yet?
Oh, yeah. July 12th and 13th.
Yep.
Okay.
In Waterbury, Connecticut. It's the website's under with my name, if I'm not mistaken. It's www.paracon.org. I don't know if we can pick up a phone there.
Perfect.
Yeah,
and then also purple. I think for our listeners and for our YouTube watchers, you can also see it in Charles's name tag over here. Yeah. So this way, you guys can go on and check that event out, because that sounds like a really cool crossover to mix true crime. I mean, I think what's really nice too is it seems like you guys would take a really ethical and good, like loving, compassionate approach to true crime, because it seems like you guys are very well-rounded and empathetic, and obviously, as a healer, I just feel like you guys would do that very well.
Yeah, so, we're not glorifying, right? We're not glorifying the negative, where it's the victims, it's the enhancement, and it's the stories themselves. Yeah. He touched upon the fact that I'm a horror guy. You see behind me, there's monsters and all that. But this is the first time I'm really bringing a special guest into the fold. So along with the 30 paranormal and true crime guests, can we exclusive? Exclusive? What do you think? Yes. We're gonna have Eddie Munster, Butch Patrick from the Munsters.
Oh
wow! Our guest at the event. And
that's so exciting.
That is pretty cool.
Signing autographs and meeting everybody and taking photos. So just give it another aspect of entertainment and another element of, you come into the show, it's tickets are $20. You're getting something even more than you were bargained for. Yeah.
All right. So what I'm hearing is I need to get on top of my Lily Munster cosplay game, and I need to. Okay. All right. Yeah. I can start looking now. I can start preparing.
We haven't even put it on the website. We haven't announced it yet.
Yeah.
Yay. So it's a Ghoul for an Hour exclusive.
Yes.
Yeah. So this coming up soon, all of our guests will be on the website. We're putting that together, but if you got somebody you like, they're probably going to be there. So we got over 30 people coming. I know some of them have been on your show. Because I was watching the montage at the beginning, so they're going to be there. They're going to be there.
Yeah, can you redo that montage, please? So we're on that.
Yes.
Yes. I literally thought about that. I'm like, we're gonna have to redo this and add. I was like, we still couldn't get everybody in on the first one. I'm like, so we're gonna have to switch it up.
Yeah.
Got to do A, B, and C montage. So
and then switch it out every new season. We'll have to add in that season's peeps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the great thing is with our event, we do have some great sponsors this year that are really backing us in what you just talked about, doing the things for the right reasons. We have backing from Paraflix, from Ghosted Magazine. We have from the Spirit Realm Network and All Access TV Network that I'm part of, doing the podcast that I do in about 20 minutes. It's
yeah,
called
we gotta get you guys off.
Serial Killers, Supernatural, and Murderers. And again, tonight's is Richard Ramirez. But most importantly, just so you guys know, we filled all of our guest slots. But if you want to come in and be part of it, and you want to be a vendor, reach out to us.
We'd love to have you with us.
Yeah, exactly. Because we'd love to have you as a vendor, whether it be a true crime type of backing, paranormal. Just want to be there with your whatever you have, books, authors, anything like that. And we want you to be part of it, because a lot of times we set it up where you don't miss anything. Even if you're a vendor and you can't leave your table, we have our speakers right there on stage where you can hear the speakers and what they have to say. So it's just a whole thing. Nobody really does that except for us, where nobody misses anything and nobody has to leave the vendors, and the vendors don't have to leave to go see the speakers.
That's pretty cool.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, make sure before we wrap this up, so you can get to your other podcast, make sure that you give us drop some of your socials. I know, Charles, you have a book.
Yeah. www.paranormalconnecticut.com for the true ghost stories of Connecticut. Paracon.org is a great way to see everything that goes on. But we're on Facebook, we're on Insta, we're on everything. But if you go to the website, there's a phone number. People forgot that you can actually make calls. Call us. We'll give you information on the paranormal investigations we do, on anything you want. We'll give you the information. And if you have, God forbid, something going on in a home, in a business, we never charge for that. If you need a investigation, if you need a cleansing, a cleaning of any sort, call us. And we're there. We want to be part of anything that's positive and good.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. We had such a great time talking to you and getting into, the deep, the nitty gritty of everything. But I feel like we still have so much more to talk about. So anytime you guys want to come back on and powwow.
Taylor has any questions she didn't get to because she's so tired.
Taylor's jet lagged. She just got back from Europe. So she is
I'm not usually this quiet, I swear.
European time.
This is the Tame Taylor version. Next time I'm gonna let her lead the discussion.
Well, we love being with you. Thank you for having us on, and hope to see you in the future. Hope to see you at the convention or at another event soon.
Oh, definitely. Well, thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a great day. Bye, everybody.